Hello, boys and girls. My name is Silo. This is Bob. Bob here is to keep me on track. I received a comment the other day about one of the videos that I posted a while back that was about the movie Precious. And in the movie Precious, there was a girl who I described as being retarded. And somebody wrote to me with hand on front of face going, "Oh my God, you can't use the word retarded. That's a restricted word." And I have a story to tell you. I have a story to tell the person who objected to the use of the word retarded. I have a story to tell everyone who's familiar with the word retarded. And it involves a woman that I will call Tammy. And Tammy, well, let me just tell you Tammy's story. I used to work for a company that dealt with the developmentally disabled. Had about 200 people, and we dealt with about 1,000 developmentally disabled people. Everyone from wheelchaired individuals who could not feed or wipe themselves to people who were further advanced, but obviously had learning issues. Some of them even had behavioral problems. Every once in a while, whenever I was in the cafeteria, I would go to that and sit with one of the or two of the people, and I would interact with them. Because of who I am, this is what I do. So I would go down, and one time I was having lunch with this girl by the name of Tammy. And I mentioned to her, I said, sometimes I wonder if it's hard for you being developmentally disabled, whether, you look at other people and, and she goes, "I'm not developmentally disabled." It was obvious that she was. She was a little bit mongoloid, and, dealing with her, she was a lot slower than most folk. And I said, "You're not?" And she goes, "No, I'm retarded, and I'm proud." And I looked at her and I said, there are some people who will tell you that the word retarded is a restricted word. It's a naughty word these days. And she looked at me and she goes, "That's because they're using it wrong. Do you know what the difference between retarded and developmentally disabled is?" And I said, "Well, I thought they were the same." And she goes, "No, they're not. If you are a person who can walk and you break your legs, you become disabled. But eventually your legs will heal and you'll go back to being able to walk again. But if you are born without any legs, then you are permanently disabled. There are some people in this building that you guys deal with who are developmentally disabled. I am not one of them. I am retarded. I learn at a slower rate than most people do." And then she looked at me and she goes, "Did you know that I have a driver's license?" I hadn't really considered it, but I said, "No, I didn't know that." She goes, "I am capable of getting into a car and driving any place that I want to go. My parents insist that I always drive with someone, but I have my own driver's license. It took me 3 years to get it, but I have my own driver's license. I have read Don Quixote. I was shocked. If you've seen the movie, you know what Don Quixote is. The book is not like the movie. It's similar to the movie, but the book is fairly intense. She goes, "Have you read it?" And I had to admit, no, I haven't. How did you read Don Quixote? It's a very advanced book. And she said, I had a piece of paper and I had a pen, and my dad read it before I did, and any time that there was a word I didn't understand or a situation that I couldn't quite get, I would go to my dad and I would ask him to please explain it. And he did. And I read the whole thing by myself. I was shocked. She goes, "What about Gulliver's Travel? Have you ever read that?" And I said, "Yeah, I have." And I have. And she goes, "Did you read the whole thing or just the part they show on television?" And I had to admit, I have read the entire thing. Gulliver's Travel has 4 different sections in it. 4 different places that he deals with. And she goes, "I did too. And I did it the same way. I had my dad read it before me, and I had a pencil and a paper, and as I was reading it, if there were things that I didn't understand, he would explain it to me." It took me a while to get through it, because there's apparently a lot of politics involved. But I finished all of Gulliver's Travels. And I was shocked. And she goes, "I finished it slower because I'm retarded. But I did finish it because I'm not developmentally disabled." There are people in this organization that you guys serve who will never, ever, ever be able to read Gulliver's Travel, Don Quixote, Dick and Jane. There are people who exist that in this building right now who will never, ever, ever be able to get a driver's license. No matter how much time is taken, no matter how slowly they do it. There are people in this organization who are developmentally disabled. And then there are people like myself who are retarded. And then she leaned close and she goes, "You want to know a secret?" I said, "Sure." And she said, you know who Tommy is? Not his real name. And I go, yeah, he's the guy with MS. Tommy has severe MS. He's one of those guys that you see who can't control their body, and they look like they're wrapped up in arthritic pain all the time. And she leaned close to me, and she said, "Tommy is extremely intelligent." I said, "He is." And she goes, "He can't control his body. He's also developmentally disabled because he cannot control his body. But his mind, he is smarter than you can ever imagine. Someday, you should have lunch with him. And you know something? I had the opportunity to do so a few days later, and I went up to him and his handler, and I introduced myself. I was fairly well known in the organization. I handled some of the repairs for all the buildings, for their computer systems. And I introduced myself, and I asked if I could join him for lunch. And I sat down, and he and his handler and I just started to discuss the job and the company and things like that. And as we were doing so, I would glance at Tommy, and I realized Tommy was following every single word we were uttering. You could see it in his eyes. He was understanding every single thing that we were talking about. And every once in a while, he would do something. He'd make a sound, or he'd move his hands in a certain way, and his handler would look at him, and his handler would ask me a question. And after this happened about 2 or 3 times, I said, "You're getting these questions that you're asking me from Tommy, aren't you?" And he went, "Yes, I am." And I said, "How are you able to understand him?" And he said, "After a while of being around Tommy, you realize that he's thinking all the time. And you realize that he's asking questions in the best way he can." It really opened my eyes. In the first place, there was a girl I knew who considered herself to be retarded, not developmentally disabled. She learned slower at a retarded pace than anyone else. There were developmentally disabled individuals with this company. They would never get past a certain point. And then there were people like Tommy, who had an amazing mind and an amazing amount of intelligence, but he was trapped in a body that he could never, ever escape. And I ran into Tammy a little while later, and she said, "I heard you had lunch with Tommy." And I said, "I did." And she goes, "I want you to remember this, Silo. I am retarded. I learn slower than anyone else that you may know. But I do learn. And I will eventually learn as much as I can. But I am not developmentally disabled. I have no idea what the limits of my intelligence are. I'm retarded, and I'm proud of it. And if anybody ever asks you why you are using the word retarded, you tell them, Tammy gave me permission to. Because she's retarded, and I know the difference." I used retarded to describe the girl in Precious. If you watch the movie Precious, spoiler alert, the girl in Precious learns to overcome her environment, her life, her schooling, and her situation. She learns. She advances. She goes beyond the situation where she's at. The girl in Precious is not developmentally disabled. She's retarded. And we know this because in the course of the movie, she goes beyond the level that she started at the beginning of the movie. My name is Silo. That's Bob. And these are my words.